Hey, Diane. What's up?
Hey.
Hey, Diane, I need to ask you a question here, girl. Are we supposed to be, you know how when you go into like the playground, into the Sims chart, you got the playground, and then there's a whole bunch of different names like Al Naviera or whatever. Are we supposed to be doing those?
I don't know because I don't have the same book as you guys.
No, I mean when you go into the Sims chart, you know the okay.
Yeah, but I don't have that. I have a different program than you guys.
No, but you don't. You have a different book, but you still have the same computer.
No, it's different than you guys. I have 29 test quizzes that I have to take. It's all different than you guys.
Right, but it's not so much the quizzes, Diane. It's the computer itself. Okay, you know how like when you go into evolve.
Yeah.
Evolve, right?
Right.
Okay, so the first one that you have is you have this.
Right.
That does the test, for example, right?
Right. Right.
And then we go where we have to do the stuff for on the playground and the EHRs.
Yeah, see, I don't have that playground. Mine is totally different than you guys, right?
Oh, okay.
All I do is follow the book. Exactly, follow the book.
Well, and I followed the book too, but I was wondering inside that playground, inside where it has a whole bunch of different names, and it only allows you for a time for like 40 minutes for each thing that you need to do. And right. I haven't been doing them because I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing them.
I really don't know. I don't even have anything that's timed on mine other than the quizzes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
My quizzes are timed. But
yeah, it's for an hour. How do you like the math thing? And I'm like thinking, what the heck? You know what I mean? I had math on the last two chapters. 22 and 23 had like the last question.
Oh yeah, math. I like math. That's always been one of my strong suits. So
yeah, and I like it too. But I didn't get a chance to finish them all because by the time you finish your test, you know what I mean? I think they should give you at least another 15 more minutes when you're doing math because you got to sit there and write it down and figure it out or whatever, you know.
You took your test on 22 and 23?
Yeah, because now we're supposed to be doing. Yeah, because we are supposed to be doing 23.
Yeah, she told us to read and do the study guide, not the test.
Well, I already did it. I've been trying to catch up on stuff. My medical terminology class is going to end next week, so I'm trying to catch up on that. So
Yay!
Yes, finally. And I've been getting pretty good grades and stuff, but I need to get caught up on this. There's stuff that I'm missing, and I need to do something. But yeah, medical terminology was pretty good. I liked that class. I learned a lot.
The last chapter is easy. It's an easy chapter.
Yeah, that's what she said.
It's very easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this week she was supposed to have something with her breast. She might have to have breasts removed or some type of breast problem. So she didn't have class yesterday. So next week's going to be our last class. So hopefully everything turned out okay. But I like the medical terminology.
Yeah, I did too.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I did better. I actually did better in that than I'm doing in this class.
I agree. There's a lot of stuff to learn in here. It's very, very hard.
Yeah. And I do okay, you know, in the electronic health records, I don't have a problem going through the site, but I can't, the tests kill me.
The test in the exams for the chapters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do fine going through the sites because it's, you know, pretty much self-explanatory, but I hate taking it.
The test. I went through them last night. I was going through the book, and I keep going through the book. I'm like, yeah, I can get that. But last week, I had a hard time because a lot of the names, well, you know how you're supposed to put in, like, Su Ling and the other ones?
Right.
Well, they weren't in it when I went back. So this week when I came back, they were there. So that made that all easy. And things were just like clicking in. I'm like, oh, all that time I've been messing with that. But everybody has a different way of learning. And some know computers more than others. And So.
What did you think of chapter 19, 18 and 19? They're the ones that needed the code book.
Yeah, I had a hard time with that. I actually, to be honest with you, haven't even taken 19 yet. I'm kind of waiting to get done my terminology book, and then I'm going to go through 19 all over again, and I'm going to take the test because there's so much stuff. 18 I found pretty interesting because you have more of the ICD 9
Right.
CM stuff, but when you're talking about that CPT,
there was a whole bunch of questions, even on 18, that you needed a book to get the codes.
No, to be honest with you, what I did is I looked, I kind of had an idea looking through the book. Oh, hey, Doreen. She always puts us on hold.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. So I think we're just going to wait for Ange. Liz isn't going to make it tonight.
Okay.
How was everyone's week?
It was good. I just had to catch up on my stuff that I had to do.
I just have one question.
Go ahead, Diane.
I sent you an email to reset chapter 15 for me on that electronic health records, and you sent me an email back, said that you did it.
Yep.
But it wasn't done.
Do you have to submit anything?
What do you? Well, I have to submit a grade on that, but.
Right, but what I'm saying is, did you click submit when you tried to finish it?
Originally, yes. I asked you to reset that one, and you told me you did, but it wasn't reset. I ended up taking it again today because you can take it 3 times, but it doesn't change your grade.
Okay, we're here at Scarborough.
Hi, Scarborough.
And we can see you, but you can't see us again, right?
No, sorry.
So, but we can hear each other, so we're going to have to go with that again for now.
That's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Ange.
Thank you, Dad. That's okay. That's okay. As long as I can hear them.
Doreen, can I ask you a question while you're doing something?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why Diane can't retake her chapter 15. And Diane, it says that there's no submission, so it shows that I deleted it.
And it's still, and for me, it shows that I've taken it twice now.
And you click submit after each one?
Yes.
So then, and it won't let you take it a third time?
I can take it a third time, but it won't change the grade. My grade is still showing the first test that I took.
Because I can't delete it. And that's chapter 15 in the KINS.
Yes. No, chapter 15 in the electronic health records.
So you now have a 0 grade in the KINS book.
That's okay. All my grades are written down.
Thank goodness. So that's why, because I deleted the wrong one.
There. That would explain it then. And I didn't notice that in the other one because half our grades aren't there anyways.
All right, so it says, so I'll go in and delete it. Okay, you should be. You sure you want me to delete the second one?
You can. It doesn't matter. I can take it again.
Well, it's 100.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can get it again though. I really studied that chapter.
Okay. You're zeroed out. You're all set.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so go ahead, ask me your question, Jackie.
Oh, yes, ma'am. You know how, like, when you go into this, the Sims one, the Sims part of the test and everything, and you do the EHRs?
Yep.
When you go into the EHRs, before you get to the playground, there's a whole bunch of people that are listed, like Al Navarro and stuff like that. Doreen, are we supposed to be doing those, like setting up a new appointments and different things like that, or is that something that you're going to be doing with us?
No, I want you to do them.
Okay, for information that we're supposed to do, like for some of the references, do we just make up our own stuff, or is there a certain part in the book that we have to use, like, for the information?
No, you can make up your own stuff.
Okay. Because I haven't touched that part of the book yet, that part yet. But I'm going to, now that I know, I'm going to start doing that. Because you have like 40 minutes to take each thing, each simulation or whatever. Okay.
I put them on there so that you would have extra practice.
Okay.
And then it should give you the end. Let me just take a look.
Yeah, because I only had one started, and that was the Al Navarra.
Yeah.
And that was only because in the Sims book, one of the questions, I think it was in chapter 1, it asked you to set up a new patient. So that one started that one. But then I didn't, I was just wondering, now that I know that I can do them, I had it easy this week. This was a lot easier this week, now that the patient stayed in the system. So I was like, yeah, this is cool. I was ready.
All right. Yeah. So yes, go ahead and follow those online pieces. And if the information isn't in the book, you can just follow, choose something.
Well, I was going to use some of the examples like they have in here. Find out one, but just change the name and use the same information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Give me 1 second here. Anne, do you have any questions?
Yes, about the sim chart, like I'm doing my EHR exercise chapter 5, 4, something like that, and I don't know if, it's about the auto populated details. I can't check that, I cannot see that bottom there.
Okay, hold on just a minute. We got to turn down someone's microphone. There's too much reverb. All right, so you said sim chart.
Sim chart, and then
What page?
page 117, chapter 5, page 117.
All right, exercise 5-4.
Yes. And then when I check, because I've been following the instruction, the steps,
Yep.
and when I get there, I cannot see the auto-populated details button, like the confirmation to of that.
Have you gotten that far, Jackie? You have to turn your microphone on.
Usually for how I was doing it, after you put the patient's name and you see her, you click the little circle and then you push enter or patient or something like that. And then when you click that, then all that information comes up for the patient. So when it says auto-populated, I think that's what it did for me. You click on the patient's name in the circle, and then you put patient search or something in, like a save button.
That's what I did. But so so you have no problems regarding that?
No.
I didn't have a hard time.
Okay, it's just I'm just expecting that there's something there like a button or something to click the auto populated details, something like that. Okay, all right, that's okay. I'm good.
Itchy, I think the auto-populated is the information for that girl. Her information pops up.
Yes, it pops out, but I was expecting that there's something like a button that auto-populated did something like that. And
No, the auto-populated is the patient's information.
okay.
Because it's like, I think for me, it was that information was already in the system. So that's why it's already auto-populated. But once you put in the patient's name and you search, that information comes up. So that's the auto-population.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie.
Yep. You're welcome.
Okay, so we are on week 12. So welcome to CMAA week 12. We're doing chapter 22 and chapter 23. And I believe chapter 4 and 5 in the sim chart book, or chapter 4, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to page 399 in our textbook. And we start with professional fees, billing, and collecting. So with the professional fees, billing, and collecting, would you read the scenario for me, Jackie?
Jody Bimel, a registered medical assistant, has worked with Dr. Ted Crawford, an endocrinologist, for 3 years. She began as a receptionist, but she is proficient in mathematics and enjoys working with numbers. Because of Dr. Crawford's confidence in her abilities, he placed her in charge of accounting functions for practice 2 years ago. When patients are ready to leave, Jody totals their bills and enters the charges and payments into the computerized billing system, which also allows her to schedule routine appointments. Because Jody has also learned quite a bit more about medical insurance, she can now answer most of the patients' questions about coverage and benefits or exclusions on their practices. She knows that where to direct patients who have more complicated questions and how to follow up and ensure that they received an answer. One of the most important duties of the professional medical assistant is Jody is able to decipher confusing explanations of benefits, EOBs, from insurance carriers and explain reimbursements to the patients. She has a great attitude about assisting patients with insurance questions and does not hesitate to call the insurance companies or third-party payers on behalf of patients' behalf. She provides patients with exceptional customer service. Jody knows to be careful when dealing with numeric transactions. Her handwriting is neat and legible, and she writes numbers the same way each time to prevent confusion or errors. She can work with her manual pegboard system in a pinch, but she uses the computerized billing system on a day-to-day basis. Jody has some accounting background, which enables her to find errors easily and correct them. She was responsible for making sure that accounts have balances on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, and considers errors a puzzle to solve and an opportunity to learn. She has never encountered an error which she was unable to resolve by the end of the day. Jody provides a valuable service to Dr. Crawford's patients, and she can be counted on to follow up any of the details that needs attention. When patients call her for assistance, she responds within 24 hours, often within an hour, with answers to the questions or a resource to help them. Jody is willing to help any staff member with other duties when necessary and prides herself on being a patient advocate. She is an enthusiastic team player and puts the patients first.
All right, so turn the page and let's talk about fees. When we're determining fees, we've actually talked about this before, where it's the time, the judgment, and the services that the physician must place a value on in order for him to estimate a fee for service. Now, your insurances actually will come up with a fee schedule, and as we talked about in previous classes, what happens is the location, the demographics, the economics all take a part of figuring out the fees, what they call usual and customary fees. The impact of managed care, we see that HMOs and PPOs will pay a determined fee for procedures and services. They also have a base capitation plan that might pay a set amount for each patient in the group. And when we talk about a set amount, this means that it covers all of the patient's healthcare expenses for a given period. Now, when they talk about a prevailing rate in the community, this is based on the economic level of the community that helps to determine the physician fees. You'll see multiple cost of living scales will also affect medical fees. And with this information, the physician will set his fees so that they're reasonable. They're not too high and they're not too low. So what do we mean by usual, customary, and reasonable? Usual is the physician's fee that is given for the service, and it's the most frequently charged fee for the service. Customary is a range of usual fees charged for same service by the physicians with similar training and experience who practice in the same geographic and socioeconomic area. Reasonable means that the fee for an exceptionally difficult or complicated service or procedure that requires extraordinary time or effort by the physician. This is where they come up with what they call the UCR, usual, customary, and reasonable fee. And they gave you an example in the book on page 401. So critical thinking application 22-1. Jody realizes that many of Dr. Crawford's patients are confused about insurance policies and managed care, and that they are frustrated when payments are not as high as they expected. How can Jody help patients better understand their policies? And is this duty truly a part of Jody's job? Why or why not? And what do you think?
Judy's help. I think to better understand Judy, so that Judy could better understand the policies they have, she has to review it, something like that, and then yes, it's Judy's job to know everything about the policies because yes, of course, she's doing the billing collecting area, so she has the obligation, or that's, yeah, I think.
Okay. So how do you think Jody can become better trained to be able to explain this information to the patients?
Can be trained. I think what's your question again? I'm sorry, I can't hear you really.
How should Jody get trained to do this?
I think to do that, she has to he has to be trained to the, to the one who are expert in that, something like that, and she has to have like she has to be make sure that she really understand everything, and she has to what is this, to understand everything, so she could let the patient understand everything about the policy, something like that, study about it, and I think she needs something, a certification.
Well,
I
a
don't know.
couple things
Is that
that
the
she
right
can do, and I know I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Basically, the best thing that Jody can do is to be doing insurance verifications, and calling the insurances to verify these benefits will help Jody to better explain and understand the policies herself, because she'll be asking the questions just like she's a patient.
Okay.
So when you do this in your job, you then become more knowledgeable about what it is you're trying to explain to the patients. You don't necessarily have to be certified.
Okay.
Although it may be helpful, it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
It's just becoming it's basically becoming a sponge in your job. You want to know things, so you just learn. You watch webinars, you attend seminars, you find a mentor, stuff like that. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So, fee setting for third-party payers. Third-party payers might actually provide a schedule of predetermined fees. Some actually require approval of fee and pre-certification for services, and government programs have strict reimbursement guidelines. The physician's fee profile. The fiscal agent or fiscal intermediary records usual charges for specific services by each physician. These are compiled and averaged over a year, and the physician's fee profile is established. They're also used to determine amount of third-party liability for services under the program. The insurance allowance. Sometimes your physician will not charge patient more than the insurance allows. You want to charge the full fee first, and then after the insurance allowance has been received, balance may be discounted or adjusted. Consequences of smaller fees. If it's a lower fee, then the physician can alter their fee profile. When there are reduced fees, it might be an insurance payer trying not to pay for the full amount. So definitely you want to know what your fee schedule is. Insurance allowances might also be reduced. That could be because fees have changed from year to year or quarter to quarter. Insurance companies also might take the position that the reduced physician fee is usual and customary, and then they might base their payment on that payment accordingly. So don't charge the first patient $175 and then charge the second patient $100, because if you were to get audited, the insurance might come in and say, hey, you charge so and so $100, but this one $175. So guess what? We're going to pay you based on this $100. So don't do that. When you reduce your fees and you're just for professional courtesy, you might also be violating the physician's agreement with the third-party payer. So you don't want to do that either. When you're explaining the fees to patients, you want to discuss the financial issue with the patients in a private setting. So not out and open in the front entry of the reception area. You want to approach the subject of fees first and explain all the fees to the patient. You want to know how those fees are determined and why the charges vary. And then you explain that compliance with doctor's orders may save money over time. So how do you discuss the fees in advance? Well, your patient's care can plan for expenses when it's discussed before the treatment. And some physicians offer discount to patient with no insurance who pays cash. Most of your managed care contracts do not allow physicians to discount treatments, so don't do that. Over on page 402, Critical Thinking Application 22-2. Mr. Reynolds, one of Dr. Crawford's long-standing patients, continually complains about his insurance coverage and the small payments made on his medical claims. He comes to the office every month for checkups, and Jody listens patiently to him on each visit. How can she tactfully handle Mr. Reynolds and stop his complaints? And what should Jody do first before beginning a discussion with Mr. Reynolds? What do you think, Diane?
Or she has a discussion with Mr. Reynolds. She wants to make sure she's in a private area so that she's not overheard. And I guess try to explain to him what his coverage actually covers and how the payments are made, or how they figure the payments and how they figure out what they pay, and try to explain his insurance to him so that he understands.
Okay, so role play. Tell me how would you do it? Mr. Reynolds is here in the office and he wants to know what's going on with his medical insurance, why they're not paying so much.
Because your insurance coverage only allows, let's say, $100 for an annual physical, and the doctor charges $150. So they only will pay the $100, and you have to pay the difference.
Well, why do I have to do that?
Because that's the insurance coverage that you have, and that's what they feel they want to pay for that particular procedure. And that's the agreement that the doctor has with your insurance company.
Okay, so this is where practicing and calling on insurances comes in to be very important. So, Mr. Reynolds, Dr. Smith is a participating provider with your insurance. For that reason, he has accepted to receive payment and write off a certain amount based on what the insurance pays. So your insurance pays your exams at, let's say, 100% after your $250 deductible. So you're responsible for the exam today because your deductible hasn't been met. When I called on your insurance, your $250 deductible was still remaining. Once that deductible is met, you will then be responsible for a 10% coinsurance each visit, up to a $1,500 maximum out-of-pocket. Along those lines is what you would be doing. You want to keep it simple, not use a lot of verbiage, but enough so that the patient is understanding what they're responsible for. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next one. The guarantor's ultimate responsibility. Well, that means that they are ultimately responsible for the bill. They may need to educate patients and advise about the insurance policy. They help the patient to secure payment, which then ensures that the physician is compensated. And then they secure the guarantors in writing, which means we have the patient sign the insurance eligibility so that they know upfront what is their responsibility. Then we make sure the encounter form provides us with the name, the account number, and any balance. We see current charges and payments are added after the physician sees the patient. So you look on page 403, that shows you what an encounter form looks like. Some forms are in triplicate, some are just single page. And then the office will keep a copy, and then they might actually give the patient a copy. So as offices are moving towards electronic health records, you'll see that you can print off a receipt for the patient. And with the new electronic health records and the patient portals, you'll see that you can actually send information about the patient's visit to them electronically. All right, Critical Thinking Application 22-3 on page 402. Madeline Amos' 12-year-old son, Eric, has diabetes. Mr. Crawford's patient, Miss Amos, is divorced from Eric's father, but the father is required to keep a medical insurance policy on Eric. Jody knows that Miss Amos has had numerous problems with the father. On a visit to the office, it is discovered that the insurance policy on the son has been canceled. How does Jody explain this to Miss Amos? Jackie, what do you think?
I would just say, Miss Amos, when I went to try to make verification on some of the charges that you had, I was notified that your husband has not paid. The policy's been canceled, and maybe you might need to call him up and find out how, ask him why, and let us know what came out of it so we can try to get the bill paid.
Very good. All right. How involved should the office get in resolving this situation? What do you think, Ange?
I think for me, maybe before the patient will come in the office, make sure that their insurance, the policies are still active or something like that, so that when the patient will arrive at the office, so that the office will know, before the patient will come, so we could call the patient before they arrive in the clinic, something like that. For me, what do you think?
Okay. What steps, if any, can be taken to assist Miss Amos in paying her son's account? What do you think, Diane?
I guess we could try working with her to make payments on her son's account until she can get that straightened out with her husband.
Right. Okay. Computations used on patient accounts on page 403. All right, business transactions usually occur usually at the time of service, and they must be recorded. You want to understand the difference between bookkeeping and accounting. Your accounting is a 4-step process where you record the classifying, the summarizing, and the interpretation of the financial statement. The bookkeeping is simply the recording stage of the accounting. So let's turn to page 404. Patient's financial record is called an account. All of the patient's accounts together will make up the accounts receivable ledger. So if they have an Anthem plan, a work comp plan, or a personal injury plan, then that would make up that one account. Your account or ledger cards have at least 3 columns. We will not see those anymore, but you might see them in the electronic health records. A debit column, a credit column, and a balance column. For posting, the transfer of information from one record to another. We take the transactions, they're posted from the journal to the ledger. Now, there are not many offices that do paper cards anymore or posting, so I trust you've all read that section and you're pretty familiar with it. There's not a lot of manual stuff done with these anymore, but it's just like keeping your check register or balancing your checkbook, okay? All of the patient's card or record, they're usually posted daily. Same thing with the EHR, you're posting pretty much as the patient walks out the door. You want to make sure you have the name and address of the guarantor, the insurance ID, social security number, any home and business telephone numbers, name of the employer, and any special billing instructions. The computerized bookkeeping systems definitely reduce the time that you need to balance your date and totals for the month and year to date. There are several staff members who can access information on the computer at one time. That's really helpful. And there are actually several types of software programs that can be housed on one computer. The pegboard system, some physicians, they're really old timers, will still use the pegboard system. Their belief is that the conversion to electronic system is not worth the high cost involved to implement it. It is beneficial to learn the pegboard system, but if you're not going to use it, wait until you have to. Your bookkeeping concepts are usually taught in using the manual system to help you better understand the computerized system. So if you can become very proficient at keeping your check register and reconciling your account on a monthly basis, then you will do well in an office. When you prepare the accounts for daily transactions on page 406, we are using a computerized system. You simply turn the system on, open up the accounting software, and then upon the completion of the visit, you're going to review the encounter form, make sure all of the charges are entered, and post any payments after the notes are entered. The pegboard system, you would use a new sheet on the board daily. Most of the systems have what's called a carbon paper that's between the two. You would put the encounter on the form in numeric order and then pull out the account cards for all the patients for the next day to be prepared. I'm not going to review how to do it on the pegboard system just because I know that you all keep wonderful check registers. Entering and posting computer transactions. Again, after the service is performed, your doctor is going to enter the encounter form. You would put the charges into the billing system, generate the bill for insurance purposes, and then post charges from the physician fee schedule. If you have anything else to post under payments or charges, that can be done after the service has been rendered. You would enter it in the computer system, credit the patient's account. Your manual payments can be entered also on the same day, and then daily charges for the physician outside visits usually are done and printed off at the end of the day. When you're summarizing everything, you could print out a daily report, what I call an end of day report. So Dr. Crawford, 22-4 on page 406. Dr. Crawford sometimes forgets to write down information for billing when he goes to the hospital to check on his patients. Jody has a difficult time entering the charges for hospital visits because Dr. Crawford's records for these visits are not completely reliable. How might Jody rectify this situation? What do you think, Jackie?
If that were me, maybe I would have a couple of the encounter forms, have them ready with the patient's name on it. As he's going through with talking with the patient, maybe he can just check the boxes that he wants, and then when he's done, maybe put them in a folder. So when he gets back to the office, everything will be right there for him, and he can just give it to her, and she'll have everything that she needs.
Very good. All right. Special bookkeeping entries over on page 407. We have adjustments, credit balances, refunds, insufficient fund checks. You don't do those really any differently than if you were doing them manually. It might be an adjustment, might be a write-off, it might be an insurance disallowance, a professional discount. You just want to know what it is before you enter it into the column or enter the charge. If you're entering it in an EHR, you're going to notate what it is. Credit balances usually occur when a patient has paid in advance, overpaid, or duplicate payments made. You would enter the difference into the balance column. It might even mean that you owe money to the patient. Refunds would be where you write a check for the amount due, enter transaction on the day sheet. An insufficient fund check is where a bank will return the check to the medical facility as non-sufficient funds. Over on page 410 in your textbook, you would make sure you deduct the amount of the check from the practice's account balance, then add the amount back into the patient's account and add a non-sufficient fund fee. The account control summary, again, this can be a daily report. You want to this will help you to determine any outstanding accounts and then the information used to send letters asking patients to pay their accounts. Billing and collections, we have payment options. You want to have payment at time of service, billing after making payment arrangements, insurance or third-party billing, and then billing and collection assistance. When we do payment at time of service, that basically means that the patient must pay their copay, their coinsurance, or the total bill at the time of service. Patients who are without health insurance should pay after charges are totaled, and you want to make sure that you inform the patient that it's due at the time of service. So page 411, Critical Thinking 22-6. Mr. Page comes to Jody's desk to pay his account. His credit card is declined. How does Jody handle this situation? And?
I think Judy's going to ask what's this, like another card for Mr. Page. And I mean, she has to tell them that that the card is declined or something, or if she has another card, something like that. Because it's, I think I don't know. I'm not sure. Hello?
Okay, what would you do, Jackie?
I would just apologize and say, I'm sorry, Mr. Page. Unfortunately, the card's been declined. Is there another credit card that you might want to pay it with? And see what he answers.
Okay. And what about you, Diane?
I would just explain that his card has been declined, and if he has another way he'd like to make the payment.
Okay, those are all good. So billing after payment arrangements. Well, payment arrangements might become necessary if there are larger fees involved. You want to make sure that you establish a regular billing system, and also explain to the patient that fees and office policy payments and what they are. Using credit for medical services. Credit cards usually accrue interest if they're not paid off monthly. Some offices distribute information about credit cards or loans, especially for healthcare treatments, which can create additional interest debt for a patient. You want to encourage your patients to pay cash to save money. Over on page 412, Diane, can you tell me what the Truth in Lending Act is?
Regulation Z of the Truth in Lending Act, which is enforced by federal trade commissions and is part of the Consumer Credit Protection Act, requires that individuals be given certain information when credit is extended, such as annual percentage rates, the terms of the loan, and the total cost to the borrower. If an agreement exists between a physician and a patient that the physician will accept payment in more than 4 installments, the physician must provide a disclosure statement about finance charges, even if no finance charges are involved. Do you want me to keep reading?
Yep.
The physician retains a copy of the form, and the original is given to the patient. Have the patient sign the agreement in your presence to document proof of signing. The disclosure statement must be kept on file for 2 years. Although the disclosure statement is designed as protection for the debtor, it can be a good collection tool for the creditor. Although much less common than in past, physicians occasionally permit their patients to pay in installments, as long as no specific agreement has been made for payments to the physician to be made in more than 4 installments and no finance charge is assessed. The account is not subject to the TALA. In accepting such payments, the physician is not subject to the provisions of the regulation. However, the physician's office must make sure to send a statement for the full balance each billing cycle. If the statement is for only a partial payment, it becomes subject to the TALA. Helping patients budget their medical expenses is a fairly new aspect of the business side of medical practice. However, it is a real service to patients and demonstrates that physicians and office staff are sincerely interested in helping patients. It also may prevent many collection problems. The physician can write an office policy that allows interest charges if the patient does not comply with the original payment arrangement. This provision could help the medical assistant collect payment because patients will not want interest charges added to the account.
Okay. Excellent. So the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act, what is that, Jackie?
It's the debt collectors act fairly in the collection efforts, and also restricts how and when a person can be contacted with an outstanding balance. The collectors are strictly limited to whom they can contact about the debt, and the medical assistant must work within that time frame to act when collecting for the physician.
Okay, very good. All right, obtaining credit information. Your credit information is confidential. It can only be released according to office policy and state law, and it must provide private area to obtain patient's credit information. The billing procedures over on page 413. Billing can be accomplished using the following: either computer-generated encounter forms, photocopied or scanned statements, and online billing statements. Turn the page. Your computer-generated statements, those pretty much show you the service rendered on each date, the charge for each service, the date claim it was submitted to the insurance company, the date of payment, and the balance due from the patient. Your encounter forms are the name and address of the patient, name of the insurance carrier. It shows you there in the book. I'm not going to go through each one. Your photocopied statements, some offices actually will make a copy of the statement and mail it to each patient on a monthly process. They usually will use a window envelope. Your online billing statements, your patients can receive statements by email. The patient must agree to accept e-bills for security reasons and use a secure encrypted program. The time and frequency of billing, there's once a month, there's cycle billing. What's once a month billing, Diane?
If a monthly pattern is followed, bills should leave the office in time to reach the patient no later than the last day of each month, and preferably before the 25th to encourage payment around the 1st of the month. Planning ahead for the preparation of statements can lighten the burden of once a month billing.
Right. And what is cycle billing, Ange?
A cycle billing allows the medical assistant to continue the routine duties each day, handling the statements on a day-to-day or weekly schedule rather than in one intensive period at the end of the month.
Very good. So switching to cycle billing, patients should be notified in advance and the new plan should be explained. Before switching, take into account what is usually the general income level of the community. Ask your local companies who pay employees at various times during the month when that is, and just see if the cycle billing would benefit in addition to the overall operation of the practice. As a professional courtesy, the practice not charging for that, usually you have to have a written policy in place. Usually physicians will treat their medical assistants and families without charge and offer discounts to other health care professionals. Your physician must determine whether offering free services violates any of his or her contracts or agreements with managed care providers or third-party payers. When you're billing minors, the statement should actually go to the parents, not to the minor. Over on 416, your collection procedures actually might become difficult, but you want to set up terms to arrange payments for people, work out a plan. For people who cannot pay, your physicians basically spend money each year providing services before they secure payment. So your patients should be aware up front what is covered and what is not. Fees in hardship cases, discuss the financial situation with the patient first. You want to assess any coverage the patient may have, discuss their fee in advance, and make those payment arrangements in advance, because hardships can arise after the fact, but make sure you're aware of what's going on with the patient. Some of the pitfalls of fee adjustments. Your reductions might actually result in your patients expecting all fees reduced in all circumstances. Patients may doubt physicians' competency. The patients may think error was committed by medical office. You want to offer all your discounts in writing, adding without prejudice to the wording. The advanced beneficiary notice on page 417 is what is used for Medicare patients so that they are aware of what is being done and what the charge is, and that Medicare does not cover it and they may be held responsible for it. When you are preparing accounts for collection activity, you want to have a persuasive collection procedure that includes your telephone calls, your collection reminders, and letters and personal interviews. What are some of the common aging categories? And
Aging categories.
Page 416.
This zero, yeah. It's zero to 30 days, 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90 days, and 90 to 120 days.
Okay, very good. Your telephone collection calls, you should be professional when you call at all times. Treat patients with utmost respect. Explain insurance or third-party payers in a patient way. Abide by office policy when making payment arrangements in collection situations. And have written notification necessary before making final demand for payment before legal or collection proceedings are started. You can use collection letters or reminders. These are usually have an impersonal printed message, probably encouraging the debtor to send payment. Their friendly letter requests for explanation of why payment has not been made are often effective. Invite the patient to the office to explain reasons for non-payment and sign the letters using a title after the typewritten signature. Your personal interviews, over on page 419, this is where you have a face-to-face interview. These are often more effective than a collection letter. You want to discuss payment of long-term treatments in advance and follow up on payment collections promptly. Tracing skips. When a statement is returned marked moved no forwarding address, consider this account a skip. Your trace skips, you might be able to use the internet to research. Investigate search results so that collection efforts are directed to the right person. Address change service. There are two versions of address change service that are offered by the U.S. Post Office. Both versions notify the mailer electronically of a address or a non-delivery reason. The mailers who participate in ACS must acquire either an ACS participant code or a BEI code. And if the attempt fails, then they turn the account over to a collection agency without delay. When you have claims against estates, on page 420, if the bill is owed by a deceased patient, it should be sent to the executor of the estate. You have the name of the executor, usually can be obtained by sending a request to the probate department, usually where that person lived. For bankruptcy, those laws were passed to secure equal distribution of assets among the individual's creditors. The patient debtor pays fixed amount to a trustee that is agreed upon by court. Debts are paid in order, the secured debts first. Physician may never receive payment from a debtor who has filed bankruptcy. When you use an outside collection service, after everything is possible has been done internally to collect, the questions are asked. Should the facility sue for payment? Should the account be sent to a collection agency, or should the account be written off as bad debt? Using a collection agency, you want to send the account to a collector as soon as it's determined uncollectible through the office. This would assign this skip immediately. When you're working with a collection agency on page 421, you want to have the full name of the debtor. So on page 421, it lists all of the things that you should be doing, what information you should have. And then, sorry, the collection agency gives you guidelines and procedures to follow right there on page 421. And then when you get money from the collection agency, it tells you how much you can post to the account. They usually collect half. On page 422, if you make the decision to sue, you want to determine if it's definitely worth it to do it, because it might be a loss of goodwill, or it might just be a write-off loss. You want to decide, do you want to sue that patient or not? And actually, the account must be considered 100% loss to the physician before legal proceedings are started. The litigation circumstances, pretty much if the patient can afford to pay without hardship, the physician can produce office records that support the bill. Physician can justify amount of the bill by comparing it with free practices in the community. Patient's general condition after treatment is satisfactory. And there's some other things. You can read them in the book there. The small claims court. This is an inexpensive way to collect delinquent accounts. There's a limit on the amount of debt that's sought in the small court. There's usually no attorney required. The defendant may appeal to have a judgment set aside, and papers and instructions for filing from the clerk of the small claims court, you can obtain those and fill them out. So we want to encourage patients to read either the insurance policy so that they become familiar with their limitations and exclusions. On page 423, I'm talking about patient education. We want to email. When we email, we keep a record of the correspondence between the two parties. We also encourage the patients to call the company and question any rejections when the claim is denied. And we encourage patients to use the office policy booklet. A patient who has filed for bankruptcy cannot be contacted or billed further. Never say physician intends to take action if he or she does not plan to follow through. Make sure you review your statutes pertaining to billing and collecting in your area and develop a good understanding of what is required of small business in collecting fees and billing for amounts due. Are there any questions on this chapter? If I put you all in an office tomorrow, you would know how to bill and collect, correct?
Sure.
I expect you would. No problems. Put you right at a front desk tomorrow. All right. Let's go to our workbook, page 22, 167. All right, vocabulary, page 167. Number 1, you should have account balance. Number 2 is credit. 3, guarantor. 4, instigate. 5, posting. 6, debit cards. 7, fiscal agent. 8, account. 9, professional courtesy. 10, transaction. 11, disbursements. 12, profile. 13, medically indigent. And 14, debit. $15, receipts. 16, third-party payer. 17, schedule. 18, payables. 19, pegboard system. and 20 is premium. Can you mute your mic, whoever has the in the background? Skills and concepts. Did we do fee schedules and billing forms?
Yeah.
I did.
I did.
Okay. So A, you should have $250. B is $60. C, the answer is 99203 is the charge for a new patient, and 99213 is the charge for an established patient. D, what is the most expensive procedure on the list? 93015. And E, you should have insulin. All right. Did you do the work products?
Yeah.
And did you complete a day sheet?
I did.
I'll go over
Yeah.
completing a day sheet, part 3.
I'm
Short answers. What I'll do is I'll send you the answers for chapter 22 and you can check your work products. Hold on just a minute. All right. So that's 22. All right. So part 3 on page 173, number 1. Short answers. You should have usual, customary, and reasonable. We went over that in the book. The 2 billing methods commonly used. You should have computer-generated statement and counter form, typewritten statement, photocopied statement, any 2 of those. Number 3, address correction requested. Number 4, the cycle billing is a system called for billing of certain portions of the accounts receivable at given times during the month, instead of the prep of all statements at the end of each month. What are pitfalls of fee adjustments? The patients may begin to expect that fees will be reduced in all circumstances. 3 values are considered in determining professional fees. Number 6, time, judgment, and services. Why are estimates useful in patient treatment? 7, they may help prevent staff members from forgetting what a fee was quoted. They may help estimate the possibility of later misquoting of the fee, and they may help simplify collection by preventing misunderstanding and charges. The 5 general rules of calling, I'll include those in the answers. Number 9, List 4 ways that payment for medical service is accomplished. Payment at time of service, internal billing when extension of credit is necessary, internal insurance or other third-party billing, outside billing and collection assistance. Number 10, why patients sometimes fail to pay their accounts, lost job, emergencies, temporary difficulty meeting obligations, and simple refusal to pay. 11, professional courtesy, usually physicians not charging other professionals. What is a skip? Or explain how skips can be traced. Do not wait until the next billing. All right, so I have that email ready to go with for all of you to have those answers on the rest of those items. Can we take a quick 5-10 minutes right here and then we'll go right into the next chapter?
Right.
All right, thank you. Okay, ladies. Banking services and procedures, chapter 23. This one should be an easy one. All right, the scenario on page 425. Will you read that one, Diane?
Laura Anderson likes working with figures and has always been interested in bookkeeping. In high school, she took all the bookkeeping and accounting courses offered, and during the summer months, she helped out in the accounting department of her family business. She also worked part-time at City National Bank. Now, Laura wants to learn all she can about the financial transactions common to medical practice. She's especially interested in electronic banking and all the possibilities it has to offer. Once her career in medical assisting is launched, Laura hopes to specialize in helping medical offices set up and run electronic medical record systems. Although Laura has considerable bookkeeping experience, she realizes that she still has a lot to learn about the daily financial duties in a medical office, including accounts payable, working with the business checkbook, making deposits, reconciling bank statements, and many other banking responsibilities. Taking on the bookkeeping function of a medical office involves not only responsibilities to the physician and the employer, but also to the patient and the vendors from the medical office purchases supplies. Laura realizes that to perform well in her upcoming career as a medical assistant, she must learn all she can about the topics pertaining to her special interest areas and stay current with the rapidly changing world of finance.
All right, so let's turn the page, 426 in your textbook. So internet banking. Internet banking today has really changed the world quite a bit. We're used to doing everything on paper, and now with internet banking, we pretty much have all of that information at our fingertips. So your computers, your smartphones, your Palm Pilots, your iPads, whatever it is, you can access your online banking, you can shop for supplies and materials, all kinds of stuff. You get your check account balances, you can transfer money between accounts, you can pay your bills electronically, you can determine whether or not an account has cleared, a check has cleared. You can download your account information, view images of transactions. What are some of the advantages of this, Jackie?
You can access it whenever you want. You don't have to worry about going to the bank. Some of them do have the checks where you can take the front and the back of it, so you don't even have to go to the bank pretty much anymore.
And how about the disadvantages, Jackie?
The disadvantage is that the forecasts show that the banking via the internet is becoming more popular, and that the cost of the online banking services, they vary from bank to bank, but it is anywhere from a flat rate of $5 or $10 a month, depending on what type of transaction that you're doing.
Right, exactly. So what is customer-oriented banking, Diane?
Americans are becoming more and more mobile. They want to conduct business and take care of personal concepts on laptops, cell phones, and on their way to and from work. In addition, the rapid pace of life requires rapid or instant solutions. Convenience has become a basic expectation of consumers where the banking industry is concerned.
Okay. And what is e-banking or m-banking, and?
And banking is like customer-oriented innovation that is emerging through the wireless technology market.
Okay, and checks. A check, we all know what a check is. It's negotiable. It needs to be written and signed by you, the maker. It contains a promise or order to pay a sum of money, and it can be payable on demand or at a fixed future date. But it must be made payable to the order or the bearer. So critical thinking application 23-1. Laura is excited about all the possibilities available with e-banking and m-banking. Where can Laura learn more about electronic banking and its advantages and disadvantages compared to conventional banking? Diane?
She can go to the bank and find out what they offer for online banking and compare that to actually going to the bank.
Yep, perfect. Your debit cards. When these are used, the amount is immediately withdrawn from the available balance in the account. If you overdraw, the card is denied unless some type of overdraft protection is on the account. It helps you to stay abreast of recent banking legislation and always follows office policy when you accept debit cards for payment on medical services. What are some types of checks that are out there? Some types of checks usually are bank draft. Over on page 428, you might have a bank draft, a cashier's check, limited check, a money order, a traveler's check, a voucher check. On page 429, what is the Federal Reserve, Jackie?
It's the banks that actually provide the nation with safer, more flexible, stable monetary value. It has been created by the Federal Reserve, and it has certain buildings or certain 12 of the 12 banks that actually do the processing for the United States.
Right. And the goal is basically to provide a safer, more flexible and stable monetary and financial system. I don't know how well that's going. What's the routing number, Ange?
The routing transit number is 9-digit code printed on the bottom left side of the check or other negotiable instruments.
It helps us to do direct deposits and bank wiring, right?
Yeah.
All right. The American Bankers Association number. You ever wonder what those numbers are in the upper right-hand corner, just next to the date and underneath the check number? Those are what the American Bankers Association numbers are. And the top numbers are what, Jackie?
The top one before the hyphen, it's either 1 to 49, and that's the designated city that the Federal Bank is located. From 50 to 99, that's either the state or the territory. And the other half to the right of it, that's the number that's issued to each bank for its own identifiable process or number. And then the bottom of the fraction, that's where the bank is located for other identifying purposes.
Very good. So what is a drawee, Jackie? Jackie.
That's the facility where the check is drawn and pays to the specific money or sum written to the face of the check to the holder.
And who is the holder, Diane?
The person presenting the check for payment.
And who is the regional clearinghouse, Ange?
Checks received by the bank and then turned over to daily Regional Clearinghouse, which
Okay,
consoles.
good. And what is a canceled check, Jackie?
That's after the check has been cashed and it's been signed by the person. That's your proof to show that that money was given to that person. So it's a canceled check. You can't use it anymore.
Right. And what is a magnetic ink character recognition, Diane?
As mentioned, characters and numbers pinned in magnetic ink are found at the bottom of the checks. They represent a common machine language readable both by machines and humans. When a check is deposited, the amount of the check also can be printed in magnetic ink below the signature. Magnetic ink character recognition facilitates processing through a high-speed machine that reads the characters, sorts the checks, and does the bookkeeping.
Okay. Over to the page 430. We're going to talk about checking accounts. There are three types of checking accounts that a physician often will require. The first one is an account for the personal and family expenses. The second one is an account for the office expenses. And the third one is a high yield interest-bearing account for funds reserved for paying insurance premiums, property taxes, and other seasonal expenses. Some of the other types of accounts that you might see would be savings account, money market, and individual retirement accounts. Critical thinking application 23-2. The physician knows that Laura worked part-time in a local bank before coming to the clinic. He tells her that he is considering changing banks and asks Laura to research the interest rates on money market accounts at local banks. How does Laura accomplish this task? What do you think, Ange?
I think Laura will do is going to call any local banks in the area, so she could compare the interest rates.
Good. What else could she do?
He has to list down everything that every bank that she called, and then he has to report this to the manager, to the clinic manager, something like that, for
Right.
discussion.
Right. Okay. On the business account, usually it's a business checking with interest. You get free checks and deposits with a maintained minimum balance. There's overdraft protection by linking the account to a savings account or to a bank-issued credit or debit card. And then there's online banking. Perks for businesses. Usually there's a Business Express, a sweep account. There's business checking with special features. There's a cash management account. You have other special features like automatic bill paying, payroll preparation, smartphone applications, stuff like that. Over on page 431, you're going to see an example of a money market account statement. Over on page 432, you'll see an example of how some business checks are. You have the One Write Checks writing system. It's a system of writing checks that can save time and minimize your errors in the medical office disbursement. You also will find that a lot of people have a program like QuickBooks or Quicken that they use, and they just enter everything in that and they print out the checks. You want to also establish a bill paying system, just like you have established a system for sending out patient statements. Usually the 1st and 15th of the month is when most people pay their bills. You want to pay your bills to maximize the money. Most of your vendors will allow 30 days to pay. If it's a business checking account, it's interest bearing. Do not pay bills before the due date. And for weekly bills, accumulate invoices and issue one check per month. For online bill paying, the account can be established with a bank or other business entity. You want to make sure that the bank pays the bills automatically, debiting your account and crediting the merchant's account. You'll see over on page 434, checks writing instructions, how to fill out the check stubs and how to sign the checks. And if you're going to make corrections, how would you handle corrections, Diane?
I'd void the check and start over.
Yes, exactly. All right. When you're writing cash checks, how would you make a check out for cash, Jackie?
Put either cash or bearer,
Yeah. And then what?
and then just hurry up and go to the bank, and so it doesn't get lost or someone doesn't find the check, and then sign the back of the check and cash it.
There you go. When you mail a check, how would you mail a check, Ange?
I think the check should not be visible through the envelope. Yeah, it's to avoid checks may be folded at the right end to conceal the amount of money written. Make sure that envelope is sealed before mailing and the medical assistant should personally mail all checks as soon as possible.
Okay. Overdraws or overdrafts. Tell me about those, Diane.
That's when there isn't enough money in the account to cover the check that was written, so they bounce.
All right, and how should you handle that?
Call the person that wrote the check and explain that it has come back because there wasn't enough money in the account to cover the check, and see how they want to handle it.
Okay. Jackie, what are some of the reasons for stop payments?
Loss of check, disagreement with the purchase, disagreement with the payment.
Okay. What are some of the precautions that you should take for accepting checks, Ange? Give me one reason or one precaution.
One precaution. Scan the check carefully for the correct date, amount, and signature. And do not accept a check with corrections on it.
Okay. National Check Fraud Center recommendation. Give me one recommendation, Jackie.
Ask the bank to advise the office when the new new checks are coming, so they know that they're coming in the mail, and you can have an idea and keep an eye out for it.
Yes. All right. When you acknowledge payment in full, what does that mean, Diane?
That they know their balance is zero. They don't owe anything anymore.
Very good. All right. Precautions for accepting credit and debit cards. What are some of the precautions, Ange?
Precautions. The first precaution should be to make certain that the person presenting the card is the person to whom it was issued. Always ask for a driver's license and compare the name on the card to the name on the driver's license. Follow office policy when those names do not match. Sometimes a married couple may use each other's cards, but if the office is strict about the card acceptance policy, then the spouse may need to present in the office for the medical assistant to accept the card.
Yep, that's good. So what if we have a return check? What would I do with a return check, Jackie?
You would call the patient, ask them what they want to do, either send you one or maybe redo it again. It would all depend on what the patient wants you to do.
And what are some of the reasons why I would get a return check?
Insufficient funds, wrong amount, wrong date.
How about a missing signature?
Yes.
Perfect. What are charging fees? What are charging fees, Diane?
To cover the overhead costs, most banks currently charge both the payer and the payee a fee of $10 to $35 for a check that has been returned because of insufficient funds.
Yep. That stinks.
Yep.
Legal options. What are some of the legal options? Give me one legal option, Ange.
Legal option. To collect a return check, make sure documentation exists proving that attempts were made to collect the check. The best evidence of this is a certified letter sent to the patient with the return receipt requested.
Perfect. Some types of endorsement, Jackie. What are the 4 types of endorsement?
Blank endorsement, restrictive endorsement, special endorsement, and qualified endorsement.
Okay. And can we stamp the check from the patient for deposit only, Diane?
Yes.
Okay. And that means that it's just for deposit only.
Right.
When you make a deposit, a stop order, payment order may be placed if the check is lost, misplaced, or stolen. But make sure that you are aware that the delay may cause the check to be returned because of insufficient funds. Also, a check might have a restricted time for cashing, so make sure you pay attention to that. And it's when you prepare the deposit, preparing the deposit, all of your deposits over on page 438 must be accompanied by a deposit slip. Keep a carbon or photocopy of a deposit slip on file. Your commercial deposit slip is used for office checking account. List all of the checks on the back of the deposit slip, transfer the total to the front of the slip, and enter the amount of the total deposit on the deposit slip stub. Also, for direct deposits, put a plan in place where payments are transferred by the paying agency directly into the account of the recipient. Some of your ATMs will accept deposits also. Your online banking will allow customers to view accounts, make transfers, order checks, and pay bills. Your bank statements, they indicate the beginning balance, the deposits that are received, the checks paid, the bank charges, and ending balance. Your online statements are basically an electronic version of a paper bank statement. When you reconcile the bank statement, the bank balance and the customer's checkbook balance usually differ, so you want to reconcile any of your errors in the checkbook and on rare occasions in the bank statement. So in all types of your bank accounts, the bank may charge a fee for service. If you look at the bottom of page 439 on the right-hand side, you'll see a bank statement reconciliation formula. Over on page 440, signature cards. What are signature cards, Diane?
When an account is first opened, the bank, the depositor is required to affix his or her handwritten signature to a card, which is kept in a file at the bank.
Right. And what is bonding, Jackie?
Yeah, there's 3 different kinds. That's to help to protect the physician. The position scheduling bonding, that covers a specific position like a bookkeeper. The blanket position bonding covers all the employees, and the personal bonding covers just a specific individual.
Very good. So, over on page 441, patient education. Make sure we encourage our patients to pay for the professional services with a personal check. We want to be responsible for pointing out any check errors and requesting a new check, and also call and explain the problem immediately if we do in fact get a returned check. Some of the legal and ethical issues: make sure you write void across the face of checks with errors. Make a note on the check stub and file the check with canceled checks. A stop payment order may be placed with bank in an emergency. Do not accept a check made payable to another party without endorsement of person who gives the check to you. Any questions on this page, on this chapter? All right, let's go right into our study guide, page 177. All right, vocabulary. Number 1, clearinghouses. Number 2, maker. Number 3, principal. Number 4, payer and payee. Number 5, holder. 6, uniform commercial code. 7, drawee. 8, negotiable. 9, disbursements. And 10, reconciliation. Short answers. List the requirements of a negotiable instrument. What do you have for that, Jackie?
For A, I have written and signed by the maker, promise to pay, order, or to pay the sum of the money, be payable on demand or at a fixed rate, and payable to the order or the bearer.
Okay. And number 2, several advantages to online banking. What do you have for that, Diane?
Convenience, it's available 24/7. You can pay bills online. You can do anywhere, anytime.
Yes. And number 3, why is customer service an important aspect of today's medical office? And
I think to be more convenient to the customer and to answer questions, fulfill requests for all types of transactions.
yes. And what are the 4 types of checks, Diane?
Bank draft, cashier's check, traveler's check, voucher checks.
Okay, I'm not going to describe each type of endorsement that's in your book, but you should have blank, restrictive, special, and qualified. Number 6, 5 reasons why checks should be deposited promptly. Jackie?
Stop payment order may be placed, the check may be lost or stolen or misplaced, delay of the deposit may make it be returned for insufficient funds, may have a restricted time on the cashing of the check, and the courtesy to the payer to get it paid and the bill paid.
Yes. The 5 guidelines to for check acceptance. I'm going to tell you to look in your book, and I'll send you the answers to this chapter as well. 3 reasons why an individual might stop payment on a check. Diane?
Disagreement about the purchase, a disagreement about payment, and a loss of check.
Okay, so for those of you online listening, you'll just have to send me an email to send you the answers for chapter 22 and 23 and just specify that in your email, please. Explain the ABA number and what each part of that means. We did that in the class, but it's also in your book. List the 3 basic steps for preparing a deposit slip. Ange, can you tell me how to do that?
List all checks on the back of the deposit slip. Transfer the total to the front of the slip. Enter the amount of the total deposit on the deposit slip tab.
Yep. And where is the routing number found on the check, Diane?
Bottom left side of the check. Excuse me.
And what is an EFT, Jackie?
Electronic fund transfer. It's transferring money, e-bank or m-banking from one account to the other for whatever transaction you want at the time.
And what is an ACH, Ange?
ACH is automated clearinghouse, which is a process of large volumes of debit and credit transaction in batches, or electronic network for financial transaction in basis.
All right. Writing out checks for the disbursement of funds. Let's see here. That was on page 181, right? You had some checks to write out.
Yeah.
Right.
So the check number 5648 would have been to the American Medical Association for $356 for new coding books. Your balance would be $4,206.79. The beginning balance in your checkbook would have been $4,562.79. These answers will be included in your email, so you can have those. Writing the refund checks will be the same. Preparing a bank deposit, you have that on page 183. Reconciling a bank statement, that will be in your answers as well. So pretty simple chapters, right, ladies?
Seems to be.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
As I
I
said,
actually learned how to fill out a check I wasn't doing correctly.
Oh, great. Okay, that's good. Because basically, this is like keeping track of your checkbook. So we were doing Sim Chart Chapter 4, right? That was what you're supposed to do this week? Past week?
4 and 5, yes.
Okay. Any questions with 4 and 5? All right, just get. One moment, ladies. Trying to find the presentation. Ay, ay, ay. All right. So turn to page 87, and Diane, for you, we're basically talking about implementing electronic health records.
What page? Sorry.
87, Ange.
87.
So when you're planning for a successful transition, you want to make sure that you have it written out. So what's the motivation? What are we going to achieve? What's the organizational culture? How are we going to support the conversion? Are patients going to support the migration from paper to digital? Does the practice have or can they obtain reasonable costs, and so on? Does the practice have enough capital in reserve to stay afloat? So on page 89, do you think the practice in which you work is ready to cross the digital divide? If not, which of the areas just listed is likely to prove problematic? If you do not yet work in a medical practice, which factors do you think would most strongly influence readiness? I can tell you from experience, the primary one is cost.
Cost.
All right. And then it would be staff training. So over on page 90, you definitely want to develop a conversion plan. On page 91, they give you some of the pitfalls of EHR transitions. So poorly designed software or lack of network server capacity, selection of complex hardware. You definitely want to do your homework when it comes to implementing electronic health records, especially if you're used to using one type of system and that's all you've been using. What is it the doctor is looking for? What is it your front desk is doing? What are you doing as the back office billing person? You want to try and please everyone, although that is not necessarily what's going to happen. Ultimately, you want the doctor to be pleased because you want his notes to be as easy as possible for him. And then the rest of the staff can basically, work around the pitfalls, so to speak, of their areas of the EHR. Meaningful use certification, it was mentioned in Chapter 1. This is the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology. It required meaningful use requirements. The MU program is actually divided in 3 parts, and actually 2014 through 2016 is where offices will be in stage 2. They have core objectives, as you can see on page 92, and then menu objectives. And then on page 93, they have some additional stage 2 menu objectives. Jackie, can you read some of the core objectives for me?
Use computerized provider order entry, CPOEs for medication orders directly entered. Implement drug-to-drug and drug-to-allergy interaction checks. Maintain an up-to-date problem list for current diagnoses. Generate and transmit permissible prescriptions electronically. Maintain active medical list. Maintain active medication allergy list. Record demographics. Record charts and vital signs. Record smoking statistics. Report ambulatory clinical quality measures. Implement one clinical decision support rule. provide patients with an electronic copy of their health information upon request, provide clinical summaries for patients for each office visit, and protect electronic health information. And for the stage 2, it's secure the electronic messaging to communicate with the patients.
So Diane, in your, even though it doesn't spell out the meaningful use and stuff like that, I think you can see where some of your core objectives are being met in your book.
Actually point them out.
Would you agree?
Yeah, they actually point them out in the book.
Okay, great.
It's a core objective. It tells you that.
Good. Because I don't have that book in front of me, so thank you for pointing that out. Okay, on page 93, selecting the type of conversion. I can tell you that out of your EHR books, the big thing to really pay attention to would be anything bolded. Okay, so they talk about records management, hybrid office, and legacy EHR. A hybrid office is where the existing patient charts are kept on paper and only new patients are entered into the electronic database. So what they're doing is they're slowly phasing into that whole electronic phase. Over on page 94, selecting an EHR vendor and network platform, you really have to assess your practice needs. Can you utilize the hardware that you have already, or do you have to go out and buy all brand new hardware? That will make a difference. So you want to survey your software applications. What is available? What is the vendor's development expertise? What is the financial stability? Do they have references? What are the EHR features? So again, really do your homework when it comes to selecting a vendor and that type of stuff. Over on page 96, talking about selecting a network platform. I think this really is a more than what you might do, okay? But when you choose an EHR software, it requires a network architecture and appropriate hardware to support the system. I'm actually right in the midst right now of practice. One doctor sold his practice to another doctor, and both doctors actually have the same software program. And what I've helped to set up and implement over the past month is that the doctor is going to stay in the 2 locations. He's going to switch his time between the 2 practices, and I have just helped to implement that conversion of the data because it's all going to be under one doctor now. So we have converted and merged the data for the 2 practices. We've been able to keep the previous data separate so that I can work down the accounts receivable for that doctor. At the same time, transferred the data to the server and created remote access and set up a virtual private network, a VPN, so that it is HIPAA compliant. And our support is on the West Coast, which is 3 hours behind. I have to tell you, they've been really awesome, really a pleasure to work with, and they have been able to accomplish everything that I've asked. So it's gone actually a lot smoother than I expected. There were a few glitches, but I can tell you that I was able to just kind of roll with it when we had some of those glitches, and it actually has worked out really well. I'm very happy with it. All right, 98, redesigning the workflow. So it's going to be important when you when you decide on EHR, that it's not just about new technology, it's also about office procedures. So, what type of telephone messaging, what type of receipt and documentation, recording of the vital signs, your maintenance, your review of clinical notes, how the patients check in room, orders and referrals, all kinds of things have to be taken into account. When you set up the billing cycle for the documentation over on page 99, you're going to have standardized diagnoses and procedure codes that will be transmitted using this system to your external vendor. Make sure the codes are correct, and reimbursement will be following soon after. Pay attention to your rejection reports or your denials, because when you practice converts to an EHR, you want to try and identify any potential glitches in the claim processing and reimbursement, and be prepared to sort out those problems as promptly as possible. Over on page 100, when we talk about collecting data, we're collecting data the same way we would do it on paper. So pay attention to that. Be prepared to spend a few more minutes making sure you have everything you need. When you're entering the data, you might be doing it data entry. You might be using transcription or using voice recognition. You might be scanning typed or handwritten documents. So you want to just be aware of what's going to be the most efficient to start off with and how it's going to go with the flow. You don't want to under-document and you don't want to over-document. This is where it's really important that the provider gets to play with the system, work with it, and feel comfortable so that he's doing his notes for every visit. Electronic misfiling over on page 101. Some of the common documentation problems usually is electronic misfiling. So when you scan in a form and you put it into a patient account, make sure it goes into the correct patient account. Make sure you schedule training. So if your staff can't do it, make sure you do it. And then you make time to train the staff, even if it means one-on-one. Over on page 102, when you're notifying patients, the most visible change that patients see when a medical office adopts an EHR is the computer between them and the physician. So try to make sure that you're connecting with the patient and you're collaborating with them. Down in the bottom of page 102, it gives you how to incorporate documentation into the patient account. So the 3 C's: connect, collaborate, and close. Over on 103, making a contingency plan. So it is a good thing to do, and it is the law required by HIPAA. The rule actually requires that your patient's health information be protected from all sorts of disasters, including data crashes that may occur when a new system is launched. Over on page 104, when you implement the transition, have a lot of patience and humor, okay? Because if you show that you are stressed and very uncomfortable with the whole situation, you're going to make your patients feel stressed and uncomfortable with the whole situation. But if you kind of just laugh about it and joke about it, it actually goes nice and smoothly. All right, 106, chapter review activities. All right, let me just make sure. Match the term. All right. Okay. The first one should be D, matching the terms, page 106. Letter D. 2 is H. 3 is L. 4 is A. 5 is F. 6 is K. 7 is B. 8 is J. 9 is C. 10 is G. 11 is I. And 12 is E. All right, number 1, true or false? Number 1 should be false. 2, false. 3, false. 4 is true. 5 is true. 6 is false. 7 is true. 8 is true. 9 and 10 are true. 11 is false. 12 is false. 13 is false. And 14 is true. And 15 is false. All right. The workplace applications, if you feel like trying any of those, go ahead. When you the ones that involve going on to evolve. And Diane, just continue on with yours. Are you almost done?
I'm sorry, I was talking. My mic was off. No, I have 12 left. I figured I was going to do 4 a week.
Okay, good. I figured you would probably be able to zip right through them.
I
Okay.
could.
Good. The administrative use of the electronic health record. So you're saying I gave you 4 and 5 for homework?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, so the administrative use of the electronic health record in the SIM chart book, page 109. Basically, this outlines our role as the assistant, the communication in the office, how we manage the electronic health records, and what type of calendar views we have, and the waiting room. So again, you'll see over on page 110 that we have key terms. And the role of the office assistant, basically most of your front office assistants are more than just people who guard the moat. We are the people who have a very important complex role. So it's important for us to be well trained and very versatile. Most importantly, it's good to have a great attitude toward our patients, our providers, and our staff. Because when patients walk in, they see us as the hub of the office. Whether you realize it or not, we control the flow. Okay? So when the patient walks in and we're harried and frustrated, guess what? They sense that. They know that. They're going to get annoyed and frustrated maybe too. So you are the first impression of the medical office. So always be ready to help with anything that the physician asks of you, and make sure it's within the bounds of ethics, law, and common sense. Some of your primary duties over on page 111 would be greeting the patients on the phone and in person, creating and managing an EHR for each patient, generating patient letters and other correspondence, maintaining the office schedule, and providing patients with and updating registration forms. All right. Communication in the medical office. You want to make sure you have good communication between staff, providers, and patients. Patients and family members who file lawsuits tend to be upset, not so much that a mistake was made, but that no one ever apologized for the error and the harm was caused. Health Insurance Portability and Privacy Act, Accountability and Privacy Act rule allows that medical practices and other covered entities who disclose healthcare information via email, fax, or phone without specific patient authorization, provided reasonable care is taken to avoid inappropriate disclosure or use of PHI. If you can't tell the last digit of the handwritten fax number is a 7 or a 2, for instance, a reasonable safeguard might be to call the patient to verify the number before sending the fax. So you're supposed to have a policy in place that says you're going to communicate by fax or email, and the patient will allow it. Patient correspondence, you're going to have a variety of types of correspondence within the EHR. Make sure that the patients, they're usually templates. Physician referral. The referring physician will complete a referral form to give to the specialist, and this will give a clear picture of what's going on with the patient. So you'll see right in page 113 the exercise it has you do to create a referral. Page 114, same thing, patient letter, patient email correspondence. Some telephone etiquette. The common types of phone calls in the medical office, what are they, Diane? What do you think would be some? Just off the top of your head.
Calling to make an appointment, a physician calling to talk to the physician about a referring patient.
Yep, excellent. And what are, just name a few guidelines for proper telephone etiquette.
Do not wear a Bluetooth or other cell phone earpiece during working hours. Greet the caller by the second ring if possible. Do not use office telephone lines for personal conversations. Keep your cell phone conversations short and private, and take such calls only while on break.
What else, Jackie?
Oh, sorry.
Jackie, you have a couple?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Smile as you answer the phone. Have a cheerful voice. Obtain the caller's full name and phone number and the reason for the calling, and verify the name so you know that you're talking to the correct person, and repeat yourself. And document whatever you're calling about, so that way if you need a call back, you have that information ready.
Okay, perfect. All right, turn the page, 116, reducing no-shows. How do we reduce no-shows? Very simply, how would you reduce a no-show, Jackie?
charge them. I was reading that sometimes they're charging them, and sometimes that stops them because it's costing them more money than if they had just gone to the doctor's office.
That's right. Okay, trends and applications. I'm sure you guys have read those. What a restaurant industry can teach us about no-shows. Anyone would be excused for thinking that the owner of Eddie's Steak and Chop has little in common with Edmund Newland Pierpoint MD, but for restaurant owners and healthcare providers alike, no-shows are a continual annoyance and a financial drain. Both medical offices and restaurants routinely overbook in participation of no-shows. When the number of no-shows is overestimated, disgruntled diners are subjected to long waits. When the number is underestimated, practices and kitchens are overstaffed. Because restaurants must keep perishables on hand, they also lose money by purchasing and prepping too much food. I think you get where they're going with that. Compose a phone message. Exercise 5-4. If you haven't done that, complete that. Secure email on page 118. This is an inexpensive, efficient system for exchanging messages through the internet using secure encryption technology. The versatile means of communication has many different uses in the medical office. Box 5-3 gives you guidelines for sending professional email. Can you name 2 things for me, please, Jackie?
Ask yourself whether you're sending the email for the best way to communicate, a special tone in the email so that it's not, misinterpreted for any reason, and send an email to anyone immediately after an unpleasant incident, so that way you're not reflecting that bad attitude onto the person.
Yep. Over on page 119, you'll see a sample HIPAA email disclosure. And if you're working in the healthcare field, this is a disclosure that you should have at the bottom of your email. Something along this line. The materials in this email are private and may contain protected health information, PHI. If you are not the intended recipient, be advised that any unauthorized use, disclosure, copying, distribution, or the taking of any action in reliance on the contents of this information is strictly prohibited. If you have received this email in error, please immediately notify the sender via telephone or return mail. And that should be set up for you. And if not, I would recommend you add it to your email. Over on page 120, you'll see a sample secure email agreement, courtesy of St. Clair Pediatrics. It basically tells you what is in electronic message, what are the benefits, what types of communication, the definitions of the agreement. Something I would definitely implement if you are in the practice. Over on page 122, faxing. Believe it or not, there are still faxes. It's a device that encodes the documents in order to transmit them over telephone lines. The fax, like email, enables quicker transmission than traditional mail. However, it does pose several security and integrity risks. So you just want to be careful of that. Use a cover sheet. And there's an example of one on page 123. And you put a disclosure on the bottom of the fax the same way you do your email. Eliminating duplicate chart numbers or duplicate charts. Pay attention to the names, the middle initials, dates of birth, social security numbers. When you're purging patient health records, tell me what are the 3 different groups I would have, Jackie?
You would have the patient health records for the 3 groups. They would be active, inactive, and closed.
And how would I purge them?
You have to wait for the closed records are separated from the active ones. There is a time limit for some of them. You have to wait till the time limit comes, and then you could either put them on a CD, put them on a hard drive, put them in storage, whatever your policy is at your office.
Yep. Backing up electronic health records, how do we do that, Ange?
I think you have to. With the use of the paper-based records, backing up patient record consists of a little more storing chart and filing the cabinet. HR eliminates this concern if the records are backed up at secondary off-site location. I think we should back up like we use the hard drive, something like that, and.
Okay, calendars are now electronic. There are very few people that still maintain a paper desk calendar. So you have different views you'll see on page 126 and 127. You can see weekly views, you can see daily views. So in the sim chart, you will have some exercises where you'll be blocking appointments and scheduling appointments. So basically, whatever exercises are here within your sim chart book is what you should be doing. Sorry. And if for any reason you do not find the exercise on sim chart, please let me know. But you should be able to do all of these. On page 130, double booking. You may double book for any of the following 4 reasons that you see there. The practice expects a certain number of no-shows. Our practice expects certain patients to arrive early and others to arrive late, which usually staggers your appointment times, even though the schedule shows them as being double booked. The 2 patients being booked in the same slot are being seen for different reasons that require different rooms and resources. And a patient with an urgent medical problem, such as acute fever, needs to be accommodated. And that actually works out really well, as long as the doctor's on time and doesn't do a lot of talking. The waiting room is the path through the practice, and it starts in the waiting room. So no one likes waiting rooms. They don't like to be alone. And they're usually populated by fussy children and folks with racking coughs and at least outdated dog-eared magazines. So it's part of our job as the medical assistant to make sure that waiting room is well lit and clean and safe. Toys should always be cleaned. If not, I would just say no toys. How's that? And use the waiting room to promote healthy lifestyles. Uh, 132, chapter review activities. So matching, number 1 is I, 2 is E, 3 is L, 4 K, 5 H, 6 M, 7 F, 8 C, 9 B, 10 D, 11G, 12J, and 13A. True or false? Number 1 is false. 2 is true. 3 is false. 4 is true. 5 is true. 6 is true. 7 is false. And 8 is true. All right. You'll see that you have the exercises within the chapter, and then if you want more practice, you can use the workplace applications on page 133. All right, for next week. Next week is chapter 24 and 25, and chapter 6 in your sim chart. All right. All right. So, what is your takeaway from tonight, Ange?
Yeah, I think I should educate about the policy, something like that, the insurance policy or the payment plans as a patient. I think I should educate more to myself, especially facing or talking to the patient, because I'm not really. Yeah, I'm sure I'm making sure that I'm very confident and talking with them like that.
All right, so I'll give you an extra exercise. I want you to call your insurance company and ask them what your chiropractic benefits are.
Chiropractic? Okay.
Okay? And next week you're going to come back and tell me what are your chiropractic benefits.
All right, thank you.
All right, what is your takeaway, Jackie?
I learned a lot. It's a lot of, just like you said, of making our own, paying our own bills here. There are a few things I learned, like what you're going to need for the collection agency. And it's pretty much straightforward on, like on what you need to do and stuff.
Okay. And Diane, what is your takeaway?
I think that's the part of the office I might like to work in. I really like insurance and payments and.
Good.
Math has always been my strong suit, so.
Wow. Okay. So, Jackie, can you call your health insurance and find out what your chiropractic benefits are?
Actually, I already know that because I use it.
Okay, good. All right, so Diane, can you call
Yes.
Maine Community Health Options and ask them about chiropractic benefits?
Community health options?
Maine Community Health Options. You should be able to Google them and find them online. They're right there in Auburn, Lewiston.
Okay. And ask them their chiropractic.
Yep, tell them you're interested in knowing what are their chiropractic benefits. Tell them you're shopping around. You want to know what their chiropractic benefits are.
Okay.
Hopefully you don't have to spend too long on the phone.
I have the time.
Okay. All right. Any other questions tonight, ladies?
About the assignment in SimChart in Evolve, do we have to finish that before before our class will end?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
you have some time.
Okay. Guess I haven't.
Doreen, I sent you a couple of emails over the weekend and stuff. Remember I was telling you that I couldn't answer questions? Well, I actually photocopied why I can't, answer the questions because of that black line. So I actually sent it to you in the email along with the picture to show you why I don't know why I can't answer the questions, but I just wanted to show you why and what it looked like.
Okay, I didn't get it, but if you sent it as an attachment, I didn't get the attachment.
Okay, I'll go back and I'll try to send you another one.
Okay. All right. Then I wouldn't worry too much about it. I can send you something separate for you to do.
Well, I answered the questions, but it's just that black line that like covers. If I see the true, but I can't see the false, and I'm all the way down to the end of the page. So when it tries to, that's why I don't do the chapter questions, because I can't get down to answer a false question.
Okay.
Jackie,
Yes, ma'am.
when you go on Evolve, if at top they have the, you know how they tell you they're going to be doing work on the server or whatever, if you close that out, you should be able to open then you shouldn't have that black line.
I do. I close them all out because sometimes I have like 3 or 4, but I still can't do it.
Because that's what happens to me, and if I close those out, then that black line is not in my way.
No, I learned that. I did do that at first. At first, it was making it bad, and then I clicked the remove ones off. Actually, I was just thinking about when you just said that. I'm going to see if I can shrink the page or the screen. You know how like you can make it bigger or smaller. I'm going to see if I can make it bigger and maybe make it, try it that way. I'm going to try something else, but I just can't answer the false questions. I can answer the true questions, but not the false ones.
Okay. All right. So if that is it for tonight, ladies, thank you very much for your time, and I will see you all next week.
I just have one thing.
Yep.
I sent you a reminder email this weekend about Chapter 19 that you didn't get to. I didn't know if you got that one too or not.
Get to it. I'll get to it by this weekend.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.